The big talk in the comments today, Trudeau didn't show up, though the Bloc's leader did. He came on vacation. This is just typical. So he's AWOL because he had a vacation, though they only do it once a month.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has had enough. He's tired of accountability and facing tough questions. He doesn't want to explain why he paid off his friends at We with taxpayers' money. He won't tell us about the contract that he gave to the company that employs his top staffer's husband. And he certainly doesn't want to tell us how big of a check he cut to the former Liberal MP from Montreal. Now, when the Prime Minister cancelled Parliament in April, May, and June, he replaced it with 4 sitting days this summer, and they could have picked any day they wanted. So can the person auditioning for the role of Prime Minister today please tell us why the Prime Minister picked today if he wasn't going to show up?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, first of all, I would have to say that the work that a government does is very serious work, and especially during a pandemic. We know that Canadians are hurting from coast to coast to coast, and right now more than ever, Canadians need to come together. The member talks about, the interim member of the Conservative Party talks about the Prime Minister not showing up. The Prime Minister was at committee to ensure that answers were given to committee members directly.
If I can interrupt for a moment, I'm having a hard time hearing the answer. If we can just keep it down, I'd appreciate that, please. The Honourable Minister.
So the member asked the Prime Minister showed up at committee. The first opportunity I had to go to Finance Committee, I was there. Yesterday, I was at Ethics to ensure that these questions were answered. We work closely with the Public Service to ensure that programs and resources are available to Canadians, especially during this...
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it looks like my last question period as Leader of the Conservative Party is just like my first. Warm, sunny, and the Prime Minister nowhere to be found. Monsieur le Président, le Premier Ministre se moque des francophones.
Mr. Chair, the Prime Minister has shown a lack of respect to francophones by granting a contract of $900 million to a unilingual organization with no presence in Quebec. How could the Prime Minister show such disrespect to francophones while once again helping his friends? The Honourable Minister, on the contrary, the 2 official languages of our country are very important to our government, and that is why we work closely with the Public Service to ensure that in the contribution agreement that both languages will be present, to ensure that all provinces and territories, rural and urban communities, Indigenous communities, all be included so that all students could be part of this program.
Of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the government still can't provide simple, direct answers to very clear and simple questions. The Prime Minister invented this phony story about pushing back on officials on May 8th. So can the Minister explain how on May 5th we was told that they could already start spending money and charging taxes?
Minister.
All members, especially in this House, are occupied with the concerns of their community, so perhaps the member has not had the opportunity to look at the testimony that has been provided, not only by ministers, the Prime Minister, but also public servants, to answer exactly these questions. We have been available because it's important that these questions be answered. We take this very seriously as well. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The Prime Minister likes to talk about space and time, but in the real world, May 5th comes before May 8th. Mr. Speaker, during this time of crisis, Canadians deserve and demand a steady hand leading our country. But instead of stability, we have a government in chaos. Cabinet ministers being summoned to testify. The Prime Minister's office focused more on damage control instead of fixing their flawed programs. And now, senior sources close to the Prime Minister have told the Globe and Mail that the Prime Minister is inventing a phony policy excuse, a dispute, as an excuse to dump his finance minister, even bringing in a backup quarterback just in case. So when will the Prime Minister finally put the finance minister out of his misery?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I want to address the question by saying that we will continue to have our focus, as we have over the course of this pandemic, on Canadians, on the work that needs to be done. What we've done over the course of the last number of months by putting out the CERB, which has supported millions of Canadians, by not only putting in place the wage subsidy but extending it, has given support necessary to face this challenging time for Canadians.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it's not the first time the Prime Minister have told Canadians that the story in the Globe and Mail was false. Speaking of that scandal, Mr. Speaker, on March 31st of 2019, the Prime Minister's lawyer sent me a letter threatening to sue me for telling Canadians about his corruption. On April 10th, 2019, I stood outside the chamber and repeated every single thing I said, the sordid facts about the SNC-Lavalin scandal. Now, he didn't like that I was telling Canadians about how he politically interfered in a criminal court proceeding. And I was looking forward to being sued because then the Prime Minister would have to testify under oath and go through discovery. So, after next week, my calendar is wide open. Could the Prime Minister please tell me when I could expect to see him in court?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to speak on behalf of the Prime Minister and say that he continues to view his role and our role as a government to support Canadians. We continue to be in emergency time. The work that we're doing, not only on things like the extension of the wage subsidy, but thinking about how we can get our employment insurance system back up and running, is our area of focus, because we know this is what Canadians are concerned with as they think about how they can continue to support their families.
L'honorable député de Belleuil.
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. It is a pleasure to draw the House's attention to the government, to a number of things that the Leader of the Opposition said that I agree with. And when the Conservatives and the Bloc are in agreement, the government should start to reflect seriously. Well, there are people behind us. Once again, I was on vacation and I chose the date of my return to be here today because there was a sitting. Yes. I had the opportunity in the Magdalen Islands to speak to a lobster fisherman, and he said, well, you're staying the course as a leader. Continue to do what you're doing, and that's what we'll do. Their questions are arising. And over a 5-week period, as the Leader of the Opposition said, one day, well, it should be organized when the dates are chosen. 4 sittings for the whole summer. They could be organized, these dates, but the government said that it wanted to be accountable. It wanted to be sincere and open. We have the Swiss charity scandal, and once again, I agree with the Leader of the Opposition. There were no Francophones involved in this issue. And then there's a new scandal of $84 million from the PMO. And there's also the wage subsidy. And I understand that, well, the person who will be leader of the Conservatives is saying among the 2 main candidates that the Liberals are moving towards $2 million of wage subsidy to fund the next election campaign, which could come quickly. Mr. Speaker, we would have expected people to be present because I shouldn't be highlighting the absences today. There are people who are missing, and that concerns me. And I would like to say this, Mr. Speaker. There are people who asked questions this morning and said, but yes, are you really going to bring the government down? And I said, is this government still worthy of our confidence? And they just gave us the answer.